Everybody, we're live from Denver, Colorado, and this is Music Marauders Live. My name is Jay, and I'm the editor at Music Marauders. That was Moe's Rebubula, our theme song there. I want to start by talking a little bit about who we are and what Music Marauders does. Music Marauders is a collective of artists and photographers and writers and musicians contributing creative content dedicated to the live music scene. I mean, we do album reviews, all kinds of stuff, but we've existed for about 10 years now, and it's been, 8 years since we initially did our podcast?
Yeah, we started I guess we were way ahead of our time based on the recent upsurgence in podcast. But yeah, we did about 7 episodes of MM Live going back into 2011, 2012. And it was a fun experiment and something that we all learned a lot from, but ultimately it just became, a lot to juggle in the middle of all the other kind of coverage and things that we were doing. And
for 2 people.
Yeah, ultimately it got shelved. And so we're back. So the nice thing about now is that the technology is allowing us to do a lot more with a lot less, so to speak. So, we have live streaming capability. We have the ability to kind of go online and do all this other stuff that was not even possible, 8 or 9 years ago. So it's really exciting, and we're really excited to be bringing you guys some new content and some different ways to kind of think about the music that we all know and love.
When you think about Music Marauders, what comes to mind? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm curious as to what your perspective is on that.
Well, I mean, for me, by the way, hi, I'm Nick Stack. I'm a contributor to Music Marauders. I've been contributing to Music Marauders since around 2011 or so.
Yeah, and Nick's been our longest contributor, which I got to say, not only am I grateful for you for that, but I'm so grateful for your perspective, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to reboot this thing. And listening back to the old episodes, your perspective is awesome. It's so entertaining, and I'm just excited to have these conversations with you. And I want to say that I'm just grateful for you. And I'm grateful to be sitting here with you.
Well, certainly, I certainly appreciate that, Jay. It means a lot coming from you, buddy. But to me, Music Marauders is kind of one of those things that's like whatever you really want it to be. I think it's almost like an incubator for talent, because we have had some amazing photographers come through our ranks, and now we're at a place, we were talking last night, and you told me we have over 50 contributors across the country.
I don't know half of them.
I mean, it's fair.
I've never met half of them.
But I'm sitting in a room full of your contributors right now.
Our contributors.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can tell you that I'm certainly excited to be a part of this project and tell these stories about perspective, because that's really what Music Marauders is. It's just a variety of perspectives and points of views. And everybody goes to shows different. Everybody goes to these live events with their own objectives, their agendas, and their own perspectives. And I think that is what paints a really beautiful tapestry for all of us in the scene.
This is Music Marauders Live from Denver, Colorado. And today in the studio, we've got the ever so bearded Nicholas Stock. We've got Ryan Fitzgerald over here. We've got Brad Yakow, and we've got Kevin Hahn, and then we've got a couple of other guests who we will get to here shortly. Today, we're going to dive into an array of topics, and hopefully we'll have a musical guest. Some of the topics today are going to be some of the recent shows that we saw, some of the upcoming shows we're excited about. We'll talk about some new releases, some Halloween shows, and we've got a couple special guests in studio. So do you want to jump into some recent shows that we've seen and whatnot? Ryan, you want to join us? Ryan Fitzgerald, everybody.
Oh, the illustrious.
Did I say that right? Fitzgerald?
As long as you don't call me Jared.
Talk about that. What's the deal with that?
Well, my company is Jared Media.
And everybody just sees Jared.
Everybody just calls me Jared. I just kind of roll with it now. So
it's Jared Media.
Name's Jared. Nice to meet you.
You should see people try to pronounce Marauders. That's interesting too.
October was kind of a busy month for me. I have to try to be a little bit more choosy these days with a young child at home, but it's nice because I live up in Fort Collins, for people that don't know. And we have a pretty nice little music scene going on up there. Obviously focused heavily on the local scene, but certainly a lot of really good nationally touring bands coming through. This month, I was lucky enough to catch Rising Appalachia, or Appalachia. How do you say that? I can't.
I don't know another name you can't pronounce.
Appalachian Trail.
Appalachia.
That works.
Appalachia. Depends on where you're from, man. I guess I don't know. Rising Appalachia. They are a duo of very powerful and amazing women. This time they are actually joined by a full 5-piece band, including an upright bass, a fiddle player, as well as, it's one of the kind of drum sets that you would expect from a band like that. It's not quite a drum set, but there are some percussive instruments. Needless to say, they put on a pretty amazing show at Washington's. Washington's, for those that don't know, is the newly renovated, it's been open for a couple years now, but it's a beautiful, beautiful, acoustically perfect venue.
Can you explain something to me?
Yes, sir.
How are more venues opening up in Fort Collins?
Well, I can tell you there's a lot of money up in Fort Collins. I will tell you it's a tough market for bands to crack, and a lot of the shows that I do go to, this one obviously not included because it was a sellout, we are hungry for young fans to sort of take up the reins up there. It's been kind of an issue, and I've written about it for different outlets that I write for.
How long have you attended shows, though, that have been like poorly attended up there and thought there's already too many venues, or have you felt that way? Because for me, I feel like whenever I'm up there, it's like it can be a pretty sparse turnout, and to think that all of these venues have recently opened up there, I'm wondering what's going on in Fort Collins.
Well, I will obviously accredit an influx of cash, especially in relation to Washington. It's a Bohemian Foundation venue. So it's the Bohemian Foundation who are big supporters of the music scene. Obviously, they put on New West Fest, which draws 30,000 people a night for 3 days in Fort Collins. So there is this sort of hub around music in Fort Collins. A lot of that is driven by the Bohemian Foundation, but it's also the fact that we have the Mishawaka, we have the Aggie and Hoties, which tend to be the most prominent venues in our scene, at least up there. But yeah, it's definitely hit or miss. I can talk specifically about the High Hawks, which was the next show I was going to reference. What a great and interesting new project from Vince Herman, Tim Carbone from Railroad Earth, Chad Staley from Hardworking American. They also had Brian from Dead Fish Orchestra on bass, and they did a 3-night run through Colorado. First night at the Fox, second night at Cervantes. Both of those shows were, if not sellouts, borderline sellouts, and people were really excited. They get up to Fort Collins, they play the Aggie. They played a crowd about 200 people. About a third of it. It's a Sunday night show. It's a school.
Kind of speaks to what I was saying.
It's a school night.
Collins scenario. You just see those lighter crowds, and I'm just wondering, all these venues are opening, anyways, yeah.
Well, I guess time will tell whether or not it's going to be sustainable for these guys to kind of continue down that road. I will say that Danny Grant, who owns the Mishawaka, recently took over the Aggie and management of the Aggie, which was from Scott Morrell and his company and his crew that ran Cervantes. They came up, tried to make it work up in Fort Collins, and for some reason it didn't work out. Again, probably for these reasons that you're alluding to. Mm-hmm. I think in order to be successful in Fort Collins, you have to have a really diverse lineup. You have to cater to every crowd, and you have to pull everybody in, and it's difficult to do that.
So we've got a big one coming up on November 8th. It's the Corduroy Classic, hosted by Part and Parcel. You're going to have Morsel there, Flash Mountain Flood, and then just like a crew of amazingly talented people, including the guy to my right, Jack Cloonan here. We've got the Sweet Lily, members of the Sweet Lilies, Analog Sun, just so many talented people are going to be on that stage. And the goal is to forgive $500,000 in medical debt. Proceeds are going to be donated to RIP Medical Debt. So yeah, get your tickets. Get your tickets now, because it's going to be a crowded theater.
And where's that at?
That'll be at Cervantes.
Oh, okay, great. Cool. Cervantes doing good work.
Oh yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about a show I recently attended. I saw Jeremy Garrett the Chautauqua at the Chautauqua Community House, which is a beautiful, beautiful room. Very cool, very intimate space. And he had Benny Burl Galloway as a guest, that's a normal reaction, a normal response, right? For those of you who don't know Burl's responsible for all of your favorite songs. His catalog of songs is deep. Writing a bunch of stuff for Yonder. I know Green Skies and a bunch of his stuff. Stringdusters. Likely, if you are really enjoying a song that's well written, it might have been Burl that wrote it. And Jeremy Garrett does some really cool looping stuff where he's doing a bunch of layers, and it sounds like a full band. It's really incredible, and I urge you to check it out. We're hoping to have him on the show a little bit later today.
Is that more traditional, or is that comparable to like what Pandolfi's doing with Trad Plus?
Yeah, it's out there for sure. He's using some really cool tones and effects, and really exploring some deep space.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're hoping to have him on a little bit. And then the upcoming shows that I'm excited about at Current, I'm going to be seeing Lotus this evening at the Fillmore, which I'm excited to see that. It's going to be great. And then I'm going to be stopping in to see the Motet over at Mission Ballroom tonight.
Is that your first time checking out Mission?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I drove by the other day just to check out, the exterior of the building. I was passing through that neighborhood, and it's really cool. It's really cool. I can't wait to see the inside of that and how it flows and the technical aspect of it, how you can kind of, from my understanding, you can move the seats to accommodate the size band.
Oh yeah, the entire room itself is customizable for the event. So like this weekend, Ween's playing there. I'm sure it's just wide open. But if you want to, you can make the space small enough to accommodate crowds of like 1,500 people. That's awesome. And they use different curtains and different,
awesome.
Audio.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that space, and I'm excited to see how they have it set up tonight for the Motet. Yeah. I don't really know what to expect as far as turnout. There's a lot of competition with it being Halloween weekend.
The last 2 weekends just blurred weekend to weekend, and as far as Halloween shows go. But it's been, I hope it's been profitable for the bands that have engaged in that, because it's been a lot of music over the last 2 weekends. Yeah. Speaking of which,
this is Kevin Hahn, everybody.
Hey guys.
Hey Kevin.
Thanks for letting me join today.
Yeah, of course, dude.
I apologize for not having a beard.
As you should.
I am the only clean-shaven one.
There's something going on.
Yeah, it's called stubble. That's all right. Yeah,
it's called wishful thinking.
Yeah. So I saw some shows recently that kind of might not fit in the typical jam band scene that we all live in. Mostly.
Great.
First one coming up would be Tool at the Pepsi Center. I saw them a couple weeks ago. It was fucking insane, to be honest with you.
What was the production, the music, the intensity?
I mean, I've seen Tool once before. If anyone does not know who Tool is, they are a very, let's say, secretive progressive rock band from the 90s and 2000s. They are kind of clouded in what the hell is going on behind the scene. They just released their first album in 15 years. James Maynard Keenan, their lead singer, is kind of a enigma on when you think of a live singer. He sometimes sings behind a curtain. He's very he's known to have a lot of stage fright. So just having him on stage was awesome to see him live.
He's also in a project called Perfect Circle.
Yes, absolutely. But the main part that I love about Tool is that their drummer Danny Carey is a 6'9", maybe 6 foot something monster on the drum kit. Absolutely just crushes your eardrums, which is all right. But if you are into seeing something that is truly about the music, Tool is definitely a great band to go check out, as well as Alex Gray's visuals that comes up behind him.
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
And I heard that it was pretty challenging to get tickets.
It was insane.
You say you didn't get tickets to that, or was it who was that? Was it you? It was Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan.
It was insane. And of course they did it great. They sold the first night out perfectly, and then they announced a second night the next week.
How'd you get tickets?
I was able to get it through the lottery system.
And ironically about that, correct me if I'm wrong, they announced the tour like 3 weeks before the tour. So for a band that hasn't really done a lot of touring maybe in the last 20 years, I have seen Tool once. I saw them at Mile High Music Fest. That's a lot of people can probably claim that. I saw Lasers, but I was way, way far back.
I hear you. Sorry. Highly recommend checking them out anytime you can. Second show that kind of does not fit in the general realm is I saw the Raconteurs with Jack White at the Mission Ballroom. Absolutely incredible show. If Jack White from the White Stripes, also Dead Weather Project, he is one of the most underrated guitarists I think I've ever seen in my life.
And the guy from Michigan.
Yeah.
He just recently, actually, I believe, paid the tax debt of a venue in Michigan that was pretty near and dear to everybody in the Detroit area, and he kind of helped bail him out of that. So
He's also completely
grateful for
reinvigorated the entire vinyl industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Third man
super
record.
Crazy.
Yeah, third man record. He's also he just performed at Bernie Sanders support rally. So
That's great.
he's all over the place. If you get a chance to ever see Jack White in any capacity, highly recommend it.
Sure.
You have to like a little bit of distortion. He likes to make some weird sounds and leave his guitar on stage for 5 minutes just making weird sounds when they're changing for the encore. That's a little bit annoying, but highly recommend it.
I do love his acoustic stuff too.
Yeah.
He's done a whole wide array
Absolutely.
of Americana recordings and all kinds
Well,
of
he's showing up at the Grand Ole Opry now, playing with all sorts of people.
Of course.
I have to listen
I
to more of his
just,
stuff.
I just wish he'd get a tan a little bit.
He's incredible. If he kind of looks like the guy from Edward Scissorhands. Like, absolutely. Ryan?
I just thought I'd mention that him and Jack Black are doing a collaboration right now under the name Jack Gray.
I saw that.
That is, I'm sure, going to be amazing.
That's awesome. And then last show that I saw, before I get into a couple things I'm excited for, New Master Sounds did their 20th anniversary tour. They stopped by Cervantes. If you don't know the New Master Sounds, they are one of Britain's best funk groups.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they are
One
ridiculous.
of Denver's best funk
Yeah,
groups.
now that Eddie Roberts, their guitarist now lives here. Color Red Records are very involved in that.
We'll get into some of that. I
We
think,
should
in future
definitely talk about
podcasts.
Color Red.
They're doing some really interesting
really
stuff over
great
there, and really soulful stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to talk about.
awesome
his-
stuff.
Let's talk through some new releases. I want to. We're going to jump into some new albums that came out. Some of the content that'll be discussed, you'll be able to see on Music Marauders and read some of these reviews. And as often as I can, I will embed the streaming link to the CD or the album, I guess, in our articles. So if you do go check out the reviews, you'll be able to oftentimes listen to the album from our site.
I've been lucky enough to write a couple of album reviews for Music Marauders lately. I want to call out 2 reviews that I wrote because they're incredible albums, and then one album that I'm actually excited to see her perform at the Ogden coming up here. But Billy Strings, I think we all know who Billy is. He is hands down the most hyped up rock star of the bluegrass world right now, and he truly has the
Already a legend.
yeah, he has the licks to back it up. Yeah, the man is absolutely incredible. I do not like his new cornrow hairstyle, but that's just no. It's been numerous now. It's pretty bad. Sorry, Billy, if you ever get to listen to this. But his new album Home is an incredible kind of inflection on his own kind of writing style.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
so good.
very, very good. His band, who includes Billy Flay on the banjo, they're just rock stars. They are touring all over the United States right now. We're lucky to have them coming up for 3 shows at the Ogden. I think it's the 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Did they add a third show to
They
that?
did, and it's already sold out. I mean, the man, I will predict that he will have a headlining slot at Red Rocks, I would think, next year.
I would think, yeah,
has to be.
easily next summer. And so the way they always do
They sell out
that,
the first night. Do they then just?
They sold out 2 in a row.
But I'm
and
saying
then-
when he has his Red Rock show, do they
Oh.
just throw another one on? Just
They
keep
might.
adding Red Rock shows until they can't sell them out.
I've
anymore?
seen them do it with, well, you can only add so many.
Yeah. Oh, there's other bands that play
There's
there.
other bands that play there every night.
No, but highly recommend checking it out. It's called Home. The album review is on musicmarauders.com. Second one is from a local band, the Drunken Hearts, led by Andrew McConaughey.
They're a regional band?
Regional?
More than regional.
Well, yeah, I would say they're local. Yeah, they're local to us because they, I think a lot of us have seen them grow throughout the last couple years.
That said, I think they're on tour right now.
Yeah, they're crushing it. Absolutely crushing. Behind their new album, Wheels of the City.
Robbie, super talented.
Yeah.
Not in the band anymore.
Not in the band anymore.
Corey Montgomery.
Corey Montgomery is ridiculous.
Great,
Absolutely
both
ridiculous.
great
Shows
voices.
you
Both-
how
Where have you been?
plugged in I am. I live in Fort Collins.
Oh yeah, that's where you're up in Fort
Yeah,
Collins.
exactly. So we all know Andrew through, and kind of the Drunken Hearts came up through the idea of Yarmany Grass Music Festival. Again, one of the best small bluegrass festivals in the nation. If you've never been, Rancho Del Rio, Colorado. But I think the Drunken Hearts are really turning into a band that people are going to start really locking onto. They kind of have that Americana, twangy
New
sound.
album's great.
The new album, Wheels of the City,
Very
is
well produced. I think
fantastic. Tim Carbone is and he's on a couple of the songs. Highly recommend checking it out.
I love the string arrangement that he did on one of the tracks.
Yeah.
It's layered. It's kind of orchestral.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it. I
That's
should have
okay.
prepared that. My apologies.
No, that's okay. But beautiful song.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Last new release that I'll mention is actually from a female that used to be part of the Alabama Shakes. Well, they have not retired yet. No one really knows. But Brittany Howard is a fucking monster, powerhouse, whatever you want to talk about. She is incredible. She is the lead singer of the Alabama Shakes. If you have not heard of her, her new album, Jamie, is kind of about her life and kind of the some of the horribleness that has gone in it. I don't think I'm let's say, verified enough to talk about her own life story, but read through what went through it. Very interesting album musically. Gonna get you into more of a jazzy style that she has, and with some spoken word attached to it. She is performing at the Ogden Theater coming up here November 14th. Sold out as well. I'm very excited to go to that one.
Go Denver music scene.
Yeah.
I was just gonna add.
Brett.
Hi. How's it going? I was just going to add one more thing about that Brittany Howard record, and that is that the personnel she put together for it is incredible. It's got Robert Glasper on keys, and it has Nate Smith on drums. So it's really, really excellent.
That's great.
Highly recommend it.
So I'm looking at musicmarauders.com right now, and I see that you did a Hiromi album review. I love her.
Yeah. She is potentially my favorite single musician in the world.
She's not of this world.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair assessment. She is incredible. Everything she's done from the first note I've ever seen has been just phenomenal.
She's aggressive. Her playing style is just so...
Aside from her chops, which are impeccable and just, as he said, otherworldly, her energy dump, like... Watching her just play this keyboard is absolutely insane. It is like somebody just taking all the love and aggression and every emotion they could ever possibly have and just hurling it at you 1,000 miles an hour.
It feels that way.
It is insane.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Hiromi, you absolutely, today at some point,
Agreed.
stream some of her music. Go over to musicmarauders.com and check out her album, the album review that Brad did for her, and stream some of the music. I believe we've got a Spotify link. And I know some people aren't pumped on streaming music platforms, and we can get into that later. But yeah, so you are able to stream the album from musicmarauders.com.
It's an incredible album. It touches on every single style of jazz piano I think you could come up with, which is why it's called Spectrum. And one of the really featured pieces on it is a cover of the Beatles' Blackbird, which is really incredible, the way that she reimagined that. Also, she has a song on there called Rhapsody in Various Shades of Blue, which is just a number of different stylistic impressions or interpretations of Rhapsody in Blue. So another really cool cover on that album. Awesome. Besides that, Sturgill Simpson obviously recently released Sound and Fury to rave reviews from the majority of the world.
Can you tell me a little bit about Sturgill Simpson? I'm almost embarrassed to admit I don't know that I've even ever heard his playing. I know,
Sure.
Shame on me. I know, save it. But seriously, no, I feel that way though. Every time people mention Sturgill, it's with so much passion and excitement.
It's a lot out there these days.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's my excuse. There's a lot out there these days.
No, and it's fair. I mean, I just found out about him a couple years ago. He is about as unconventional of a country musician you could possibly come up with.
Psychedelic country.
Yep. Yeah, you should check out a video he has called Turtles All the Way Down, which is just a complete psychedelic video starring a country musician. It's really, really bizarre. But just to kind of go along with that, he has a song on his new album that's called Mercury Must Be in Retrograde, which is not the kind of thing you often hear on a country album. So that kind of gives you an idea where he's coming from. Very, very cool album, super psychedelic. In a weird way, it's a country album that almost sounds like it could have been produced by MGMT. It's got some really intense electronic aspects to it that are really cool. And then the other two albums I'll briefly mention, Octave Cat has a new album out called Refract, And it is so good, right?
And for me, it may not be the most complex music in the world. And
It's not.
I love it.
It's phenomenal.
It's been my go-to so frequently over coffee recently to kind of get me charged up for the day. It's jazzy. It's a little bit electronic-y, kind of, but very tasteful.
Totally agree. It's right in my wheelhouse as far as those styles go. They've just hit the sweet spot for me.
And Octave Cat is members of Lotus and Dopapod.
Correct. Yep. Cool. And lastly, an album called Things of That Nature by Mark Letary. I don't know how familiar people are with Mark Letary, but yes, he is a guitarist from Snarky Puppy who has done a lot of solo work lately. It's really jazzy stuff. It's really super cool, intricate guitar work, but it's very edgy. It has a little bit of a Jake Sinninger, Humphreys kind of tone, a little aggressive from time to time, but that balances out the really easy, mellow, jazzy parts that are in it, and just a super diverse offering. It's really, really good.
Cool. Why don't you stick around? And I want to jump into a little bit on how artists are releasing material and how the record industry is kind of changing. I think for that, I'd like to bring on Jeremy Garrett from the Infamous Stringdusters.
Hello.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's Justin, and we are live on Music Marauders Live right now. Where are you? Where am I reaching you at?
I'm in the back lounge of our tour bus somewhere in Baltimore.
Awesome. How's tour been going for you?
It's been going great, man. It's just kind of kicking off, but we've been at it a couple of days already, and getting rolling strong already. It's fun to have that fresh energy and sort of pick with everybody after a break like we've had. So it's been a lot of fun.
I'm sure. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your solo stuff and what you're doing outside of the Stringdusters? Because I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of people, when they do their side projects, that a lot of times it sounds a lot like, or they take a similar approach to their main band. And I think you've gone a completely different direction. And if you can talk a little bit about your looping and just your process for your solo project, I think people would be pretty interested to hear how that shakes out.
Sure. It's basically the idea sort of culminated from a time period when I was out traveling the United States, living in my RV. And I carried around recording gear with me because I'm a pretty avid songwriter. So I always wanted to record my own demos and stuff as I was out, recording these songs that I was writing. And since I'm a multi-instrumentalist and the only guy that was around, I just kind of ended up, doing all the parts, recording all the parts and that sort of thing. And I just really enjoyed the process, and it was a lot of fun. And got into it, and I just tried to figure out a way. I tried to see if there was a way I could make it viable somehow to do it in a live setting, to take all that somehow and make it interesting enough to, put in front of people, and figure out a way that you could even actually do it. So I started working with loop machines, a few years ago, and basically got it to the point where it is now. It's, a few records into this process, and I'm of course on each one diving deeper and deeper, and it's incredible what's possible now with the technology as far as looping goes. And also I use all analog pedals for my sound effects, and so I can bring these pedals into use and make all kinds of sounds with the fiddle that wasn't, maybe possible even, 10 years ago or something.
Was there a learning curve with that, do you feel like? Or was it?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Nope.
Not at all.
I spent hours and hours and upon hours in my basement, basically relearning how to, play music with myself. Because, you don't want a sterile sound, and it's probably easy to be cheesy with a loop machine, I think, and we all know it's kind of a fine line. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be careful. I wanted to be really careful about how I approached that. I didn't want, too much, I strive in trying to be original and not cheesy, or overusing the machine, because it's still supposed to be real music. So learning how to play dynamically so that when you lay down a loop, it sounds like there's a person still there playing it. And then utilizing that for myself, since I'm a multi-instrumentalist, I'm a really decent, guitar player as far as like rhythm and that kind of thing goes. But like, I'm not necessarily like, freaking flat picker or something, necessarily. So my main instrument is fiddle, and I can do some things on mandolin too. And so it's nice to lay down that rhythm guitar.
Yeah, I think you do a great job using those instruments to kind of layer it and then featuring the fiddle still.
Featuring the fiddle or singing over the top. So I can do more intricate, fancy stuff that I couldn't necessarily do if I was trying to do it singer-songwriter style with my guitar and stuff,
Right.
So, it's, it's evolving more and more. I'm getting ready to go into another phase now where I'm going to start adding a little bit of percussion to my live shows and bring that into the loop, which I haven't done yet. So it's going to be exciting. I'm going to need some time to sort of go back to the basement and work all that out. But it's now to the point where I'm pretty comfortable with the whole setup on stage. I got my gear all dialed in for the most part. It's a pretty fast setup, and
great.
I can do loops now that I don't have to prearrange, or that I don't even have to practice. I can just sort of set up a vibe now because I know what I'm doing. And I try to use the loop machine like it's an instrument, itself.
Right.
And not overutilize it, hopefully, but just have it sort of enhance what it is I'm trying to do.
Definitely. So along those lines, I want to talk a little bit about and get your perspective on how artists are releasing music now and releasing material. It's changed so much from just albums and records to now this approach of just releasing singles that are kind of spaced out. Can you talk a little bit about that process? Because I know you've been in the studio a bunch recently. You're in the process of putting out tracks now, and I think you got some other stuff in the can. I don't know how much you can talk about all that, but I would just be interested to hear your perspective on how that process of releasing music is changing.
Well, it's all changing constantly in the music industry, especially now with the advent of technology that, and all these different systems like Spotify and Apple Music Play and all these kind of different platforms that release music. There's a million different ways to do it now. And so, it's just a matter of trying to figure out how you can best manipulate those platforms as an artist to stand out. And there's, tricks and things that people in the industry have been trying, it's rare now, I think, if you listen to an entire record, you might be an exception. Excuse me, as opposed to like, most of the young people that I know that are listening and consuming music.
That's so weird. That's so weird because I see an album as like a flow.
Yeah, but here we are, and the pendulum is swinging back the other way. As I'm sure you know, Jeremy. There's vinyl sales they're selling more vinyl records now this year than they've sold in like the last 30 years.
That's crazy.
It's insane. So
I heard it surpassed CD sales. Or
yes, it's amazing that vinyl is making a comeback. What was thought as a dead technology. So I'm curious as to your perspective on that. Are the Dusters seeing an uptick in vinyl sales? Are you guys pressing vinyl?
Yeah, I think vinyl is a nice novelty, but it's still, even though sales are up, like, it's not like enough to really move any kind of serious needle.
Sure.
It's for us especially. It's nothing that, would take over our streaming platforms as far as like, what we, I guess, see as far as revenue coming in through those streams. So, but it is a thing to note, that people are still into records, but I would be curious to know what age group is really buying those records. And, I would guess it's probably not our young kids. And the way that the young people are consuming music now and the way that it's heading is, these playlists and things, and getting a song on a playlist now for an artist is kind of a big deal, because if it's a big enough playlist, you're going to get heard by a lot of people, especially if it's in the top, say 5 songs of that playlist.
Sure.
So once that happens, you see that the record really kind of goes away and it all becomes about singles. And that's what it is. But, nevertheless, like, I think musicians and artists have to. One of the things about a record is not just to put music into the world, but it's also a way that the artist or band or whatever learns for the next upcoming phase of their thing. I think most of the time you learn a lot in the studio as you go. You have the songs perhaps and you're laying them down, but those are the songs you're going to be playing for the next year or 18 months or whatever record cycle.
Are streaming returns and are the checks from Spotify viable? I don't know what those look like, and we obviously don't need specifics, but is that even a viable source of income?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. That's
literally
great news.
Maybe the first musician I've ever heard say that. So that's bully. That's great.
Okay.
I mean, well, so the alternative is what?
I hear you. You can't not be on those services. I feel like even the bands that kind of held out for a long time have since caved.
Yeah, this is the game we play now, and it is what it is. It's not going away, and you're not going to fight it. And hey, I eventually finally joined Spotify, even though it goes against some of the principles because of this and that. But I feel like there's work to be done in the laws of the land as far as how artists are paid. When they create all this content to drive people to these platforms, they should be, I think, in my opinion, as an artist, be compensated better. And we have a lot of work to do to get that better. But it is a viable and realistic platform to, receive revenue for your business.
Yeah.
And
one of our fans is chiming in or viewers is chiming in on the live stream and saying that Spotify just makes it so easy, and that was from Corey Walsh.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like everything is right there. I do have to do a lot of research. Sometimes people will have me guest on their shows, and instead of having them somehow send me some kind of CD in the mail or some kind of link or whatever, I can just go on Spotify and check out their band.
Right.
And, learn whatever I need to learn.
Right.
And it's all right there. I mean, it's obviously here to stay. And it's, I feel like as artists have to keep the fight going for making it better for us, in Congress and whatnot.
Right.
But, there's definitely, money coming through the door. It may even be like a better representation than it used to be. I mean, the days of selling plastic discs for $15 or $20 or $25 are over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Great.
I mean, there's still a lot of great fans that will buy those discs from our record table, say at the shows or whatnot, just because mainly they're badass and they want to support the artists.
Right.
And, have maybe a physical souvenir to take home with them. And that's awesome. That's probably, how we see the most revenue is when people buy stuff at our shows and come to the shows. That's the way we benefit the most to keep pursuing our art.
Take note, fans. You do so much more. It's worth thousands and thousands of streams to buy one record or one CD or one poster from the band directly. So take note, fans.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all relative, I mean.
Well,
I talked to some older artists that are sort of jaded, about streaming platforms, and they don't even have some of them I know that are popular artists don't even have their music on there at all because they're totally against it. But I don't see how that anybody learns about those artists, I mean, in my opinion, that's it's important to me as a new artist. I feel like I'm still a new artist in a lot of ways. And how else would I be able to get the word out there unless people could get on that platform and hear it when they're, driving in their car or at work or wherever they listen to that kind of stuff, So It's important for us. But like I said, it's just a matter of getting a better, pay scale perhaps of how that pays out on the stream. But I encourage everyone to just go to Spotify and check out my Spotify page.
That's crazy to hear an artist just tell everybody to head to their Spotify. That's great. I appreciate you embracing it, and I think that it's a smart move. So I'm grateful for your perspective. Nick actually has one more question for you, and then we'll let you go.
We're wrapping up here, Jeremy, and I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much for calling in.
Yeah, man.
And chatting with us today. I know that we've got a big event coming up out here in Colorado on Monday, and I just want to know how you feel about the Stringdusters being included in the Jeff Austin benefit for What the Night Brings.
Well, it's something that we felt compelled to do, to take part and help with the Jeff's family and all that kind of thing, and we knew Jeff and played music with him. He's in our business, and it's a small community, really, overall. And so, the many times we've brushed elbows with that cat on shows and even just hanging. So, it's going to be good to get together with all the people sort of in the scene and just kind of hang together and spend some time and, kind of hopefully get into the mindset that, this is an important community that we all have and we're all here for each other, and that's kind of what this is all about.
Definitely. Well, send our regards to your bandmates, and I hope that you see a fruitful rest of the tour. And I'm grateful for your perspective. I'm grateful for your friendship. And thank you so much for taking this time to do this, Jeremy.
Same here, brother.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Later.
All right. Take care. I'm going to try calling Roosevelt Collier right now. Hey, Roosevelt. We're on air right now. How are you, buddy?
Are we live?
We are live. How's it going, Rosie?
What's happening, my brother?
How are you?
All right, man. Everything is everything, Same old mashed potatoes, just another day, man.
Awesome, dude. Where are you?
Man, I'm currently in Destin, Florida. Destin, Florida, I have a little festival, I here to play this evening. Then after that, I'm finna head back home. Finally.
Awesome. Where's home for the folks that don't know?
Kissimmee.
Awesome.
By Disney World. The worst place to live if you have kids.
So you live at Disney World?
No, absolutely. Let's not take it out of context, brother. No.
That was my first question. Do you live at Disney World?
I live close enough where the kids think that it's a every weekend thing. I'd be like, no, it's not.
That's awesome. How are the kids doing? How's the family doing, Rosie?
That family man is good. The kids are great, man. It's my son's birthday is in about 12 hours.
Oh wow!
Tomorrow.
That's fun.
Tomorrow morning. So yeah, he's gonna turn 3. So
that's great.
I gotta do that.
Cute. Adorable.
Chuck E. Cheese it is.
Well, I can tell you, Rosie, this is Nick from Music Rock.
Nick, what's happening?
How you doing, Rosie? Good to hear from you. Thanks for calling in with us today. I've got a 3-year-old at home, and I just wanted to, I've asked this of a couple different musicians. I'm just curious, how has having a child affected your musical creativity and your output?
Oh, dude, it's the best thing ever. It is the best thing ever because now, your whole mind frame change, it's not about you no more, it's about, it's about those kids, so everything is more serious now. I mean, which it has always been, but I take things more serious now, and that's my new joy, is just seeing these kids smile,
That's awesome.
So yeah, man. I mean, as far as me, it's been like a great thing,
And I want to pay you a compliment. I just want to say you're such a good dad. I get to witness you. Obviously, you stay at my house when you're in town and whatnot, and you're always FaceTiming the kids. And even though you may not be present with them in that moment, you are always thinking about them. You're always there for them, and I think it's just awesome to watch. And you're such a great dad.
Yeah, there's nothing like making you totally afraid of everything. Nothing that will make you more afraid of everything than having a child.
Listen, listen, man. That's absolutely right. Listen, man. That will buckle you up quick. I cannot speak for man. Man. All dads, but I mean, I know me, man. Yeah, man. That will sober you up, buckle you up very quick. So yeah, that's that.
No doubt. So, have you been? I should pull up your website. Have you been playing? Or are you about to tour with Jimmy Herring?
Yeah. Oh, so that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you put yourself in that position where you have to get up and play in front of Jimmy Herring?
Listen. I have no idea why. You know what? When I set myself up for failure like that.
And I've watched you get on stage with him multiple times, which I would. Are you kidding me?
Listen.
That's crazy. You hold your own too, man, and it's awesome.
No. Let's not get to. Thank you so much for that nice, whatever that
I'm just
was.
being nice.
But listen, let's not get it twisted, right? But once I got the call, it was quick too. I was like, yeah, Jimmy, yeah, let's do it. But once I settled down and thought about it, I was like, oh hell, what did I just do? So, like, let's not take it out of context, man. I am definitely. Listen, man, I'm back in the lab. Listen, man, I'm shedding every day, late night. Because this is one thing, I don't care who it is, but this is Jimmy Herring. You do not want to be, like on your F game.
That's true. Even the C game, it's a little questionable. We're hoping to have Jimmy Herring on down the road, and we'll have a conversation with him. Yeah, it'd be super cool to have him on.
He's been doing some cool stuff with John McLaughlin.
Big fan of him as a human. Yeah.
Yeah.
And anytime I can talk to somebody about playing with John McLaughlin, it's a good day. Rosie, thank you for this call, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you guys so much, man.
Yeah.
And big ups, like on y'all first show, man. You know what, man? This is good, man.
Thank you for saying that. I literally thought you were just going to call me a wook right now. So that's totally the opposite way I thought you were going to go, and I'm grateful for that.
Not this time.
Not on the air.
Okay. Right, not on there.
Well, thank you
y'all
so much, buddy.
man.
You have a great rest of your day. Send our regards to the family, and you and I will obviously talk soon.
You're the best, Rosie. We love you, buddy.
Take care, y'all. Bye-bye.
Take care, buddy. Awesome. I love that guy. He's so great, so humble. His skill set is just impressive. It's so much touch and feel on the instrument. It's not just hitting the note, but sliding into it and making it. It's awesome. It sounds like vocals.
You impress people when you reach that artist at large stage, and Roosevelt Collier is definitely that one that, like, if you're looking at a festival lineup and you look down and you see Rosie on the artist at large section of the festival lineup, you're like, okay, this is gonna be fun. So yeah, he's a pretty amazing cat.
Thank you again, Rosie, for calling in. One of my favorite recent meets, greets, I don't know.
Hangs.
Hangs.
The kids call it
I just in the last year or two met a gentleman by the name of, gentleman. I use the term loosely, but join us. Jack Cloonan. How are you, buddy?
How are you?
You are a gentleman. I didn't mean to say that. Yeah, I was kidding. Jack is a heavy presence here in Colorado and has been making a name for himself rapidly. I see you popping up everywhere. I see you playing with everybody. And number one, I'm grateful to have you.
Thanks, man.
And yeah, where did you come from? Where did you just kind of popped up out of nowhere? Or maybe you didn't, and I just was out of the loop.
I've been around.
You've been around?
Yeah, I've been.
You a Colorado guy?
No, I'm from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. Went to school in Fort Lewis, down in Durango. And then I moved up here a couple years ago. And then I started hanging out with you.
Midwest guy. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, recently you released an album,
and
I gave it a listen, and I was super impressed with it as a whole, and I gave it another listen, and another listen, and another listen.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's really wonderful, man. I think you've done a really great job with that product. Who are you surrounding yourself with on that?
I got Khalil Brown on drums. I got Mike Testagrossa on dobro, and Jacob Haslick on bass, speaking to the microphone.
Yeah, speaking to the microphone.
And then I had Andrew Lunsford engineer it with me.
Okay,
and
cool.
help produce, and we did it up at Mountain Star Studios up in Black Hawk, Colorado.
I love Mountain Star.
That's a special place.
It really is, yeah. Shout out to Kip up there at Mountain Star. Wonderful property, wonderful people up there.
Yeah.
I feel like I see you popping up a lot with the Leftover Salmon guys.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your relationship to those guys and what that does for a guy like you in Colorado.
It's helped a lot. I mean, they just like to pick all the time, and me and my friends like to pick all the time, so we met at Telluride naturally in Town Park. And about, I don't know what time it was, but we just became picking buddies from there on out, and then just started seeing each other more and more. And they're just one of those bands that's, they'll play Red Rocks and then they'll go pick. They'll have their instruments out and keep picking. So
Yeah.
It's easy to just meet them.
Really great crew, and we're hoping to
Yeah.
have some of the leftover salmon guys in here at some point.
Durango has its own kind of amazing little pocket of music down there. I know
Yeah.
you've got a pretty amazing theater. Talk to me about that.
Animus City Theater is a great spot. It's where I had some good shows there. In college, I had a few bands. We opened up for Kyle Hollingsworth Band up there.
Had you had any bad shows there?
No.
No. Good ones.
Bad lighting back in the day, but they figured that out.
Good.
Tough on folks.
But Durango's got a bunch of good spots. They got, it's called Durango Art Center, too, is another good theater. They don't really book. It's not really a live music spot, but it's a good stage.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I recently saw a video of you coming from Beer Fest, heading to Cervantes
Yeah.
in what I would call a rickshaw.
Yeah.
But other people call it other things.
A pedicab is the
yeah.
word I've heard, yeah.
Pedicab, okay. And you guys it's super entertaining if you haven't seen this video. I know it's on Andy Thorne's musician Facebook page.
Yeah.
But they're riding in the back of a pedicab, picking music. Andy's playing fiddle and you're playing guitar.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
It was Thorne, man. He asked the guys, like, can we busk? And the guy's like, you do whatever the hell you want back there.
Coming from Beer Fest to Cervantes, I was delightfully surprised with how decent that sounded coming out of Beer Fest.
Oh, yeah.
Just because I expected you guys to be hammered.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. You know, they give you a 1 ounce pour, and then we were playing. We had 2
okay.
2 or 3 sets.
So it wasn't like you spent the whole time walking around getting hammered. Gotcha.
I spent the whole time walking around getting hammered.
I spent some of the times, I was there all 3 days, so I spent some of the times walking around getting drunk.
I saw you guys on Friday that they posted that you guys were playing, that Salmon was playing there, and I tried to find you guys, but it never happened.
Yeah, well, it's a weird little warehouse setting.
Just
Yeah.
crawled around.
Crawled around with my hands.
It's huge, man. That festival's
Is it?
huge, yeah.
I haven't been there.
I remember the first time I went to GABF, they give you your little cup, and this year they had glass glasses, which I thought was very brave of them.
Jesus.
It used to be you drop the plastic cup and it go ting, 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 and you'd hear, you know, everybody. Now you'd hear the lightest little tink, and that was the glass just shattering on the floor. And there was still a big cheer afterwards, but yeah, no, Beer Fest, for those that know, Great American Beer Fest is probably one of the biggest beer festivals on the planet. It happens in Denver every fall, and it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, people come from all over the country for that.
All over the planet.
And Winter Wondergrass is getting like a stage there this year.
Yeah.
So that was the first time we had live music.
30 seconds or less, tell me what is disco grass, real quick.
Oh man, it kind of started as disco grass. We're just kind of, I got this new joke, we're genre fluid. Because a lot of people have assumed our genres. A lot of people just assumed our genres, you know. We got an article written up that we were a blues band the other week, and, you know, it depends on the song. You know, it depends on what song we're playing, I guess, you know, like we'll do, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it anymore other than genre fluid, I guess is the new joke.
That's great. I love that. I'd love it if you would play us a song. I don't know if you just wore that in as like a prop or if you were planning on performing.
We could do both, yeah. It was a prop, but we'll just
We're
wing
gonna play it.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
wonderful. I appreciate you.
There's an old tune I wrote. It's called Keeney's Tune.
Let me just look at you for a second. Let me just, don't say anything. Just look pretty. Wow. Wow, that was awesome, man.
Thanks, man.
I'm so
Appreciate
grateful for you. Guys, check out Jack Cloonan. Check out Jack Cloonan Band. Go to his Facebook page and his social media outlets and follow him.
I'll be there.
He will be there. Not only is this guy extremely talented, but just a great person, great sense of humor, and I really predict that you're gonna just what I've seen already. Obviously, super impressed, and then this is just the beginning. So keep an eye on Jack. I'm excited about this next segment. I'm very excited to have this person sitting in my living room on her cell phone right now. Let us know when you're ready. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite photographers, Nancy Isaac. Come on, join us. All right. I'm really excited to talk to Nancy. Nancy has been shooting for Music Marauders for a little while now. Why don't you talk about how you got started shooting shows?
In general, or with Music Marauders?
In general first, and then we'll get into kind of the Music Marauders aspect of this.
Okay, so I started shooting. I just started going to lots of great music and bringing my camera just for my own personal fun to have the camera.
Yeah?
And
Was
then,
it an SLR? Was it a point and shoot?
Oh, it was a point and shoot. And it was, yeah. And then all of a sudden they started cracking down on bringing in cameras for
I remember that.
shows. Just really, it was really weird, like even a point and shoot. And I was really bumming out. And then I very luckily one day met you at the Gothic for that amazing Picking on Cancer show. Which,
I remember we were talking.
That
I think
was so good.
It was so good. It was a great lineup
It was
on
good.
that. Great.
Drunken Hearts opened up for, let's see, who was in it?
Adam Angela,
Allie Crowell. Billy Strings jumped on stage
Billy
for
Strings
part
was
of it.
guested. Yeah, it was really special. Yeah,
It was.
really special.
Jesse Farrar from Old Salt Union.
Yeah.
That was really great. So anyway, I just was sort of lamenting to you about how I couldn't get my camera into shows.
I think we were standing by Taper Corey at the time.
We were.
And he was
Yes,
getting set
Corey
up for the
Sandoval,
shows.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to give him a mention for sure. We miss you, Corey.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Didn't want to bring that down. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, we were standing by Corey, and I
but
remember
was
you
just,
come up
yeah,
just
I
bummed.
was just talking to you, and I think they'd just taken my camera from me and put it in the back office. And you and I just started chatting about it, and you said, well, hold on for a second. And you ran backstage and grabbed me a pass and came out and gave it to me, and I was like, yes. So anyway,
I can't always do that. That's not like just so we're clear.
I think you were
I was promoting
it.
Yeah,
because it was yeah.
It was at the Gothic.
It was your show. Yeah, and so
don't
then
ask me for photo passes.
Yeah.
I don't have that capability typically.
No, that was super cool, and I was really stoked. And then I don't know, I just it started out with me just going to shows just as a fan to watch great music, and then I started kind of pestering poor Jim Mimna all the time with questions. I'd pepper him with like settings questions and.
That's a good guy to talk to.
Oh yeah. Except I probably annoyed him a little bit, but and he was probably just too nice. No, well, I think what it is he was just too nice to tell me it was just I had a really shitty camera, and that was why. Because at that time I was just like, it was like a point and shoot.
Yeah, but
I was like, Jim, I know. But for low
Great way to
light,
start off too, though. I mean,
I
just to get that little experience under your belt.
but that's. Well, yeah, no, this was a Sony Cybershot. It's actually a really good one for a point and shoot. I can get really, really far away shots. So.
That's great.
But anyway, yeah. So I used to bother him with questions, and I just would be like, God, I want to do what he does.
Everybody wants to do what Mimna does.
I know,
Mimna's,
it was fun.
Yeah, Mimna shoots at Red Rocks now.
He's a shooter.
He's incredible.
He's all over. But yeah, he's a super. For those who don't know, Jim Mimna is super.
Check out his work.
He's like one of the best out there.
Yeah, same. Yeah, he's wonderful. And I'm glad that you came up talking to him a little bit and getting advice from him. I found that with your work, it started off really good, and it just has escalated to some stunning output recently. And I mean, just to watch the growth in just a few years is mind-blowing.
Thank you.
No, seriously, thank you, because we get to enjoy all of your images, and not only on Music Marauders, but they get shared across your personal pages and your outlets. Follow Nancy and like Nancy's page. It's Nancy Isaac Photography on Facebook. Be sure to follow her.
And then I have N Isaac Photography, which is my non-music photo page too,
I don't know if I knew that.
which is it's just landscapes and portraits and
I'm gonna follow you right now.
pet portraits even.
Pet portraits.
Yes,
I might
yeah,
need
that
you to take
that
some
cute
pictures
little
of me and my cats.
that cute little French bulldog that you saw yesterday.
Adorable. All right.
My grand dog.
So, can we discuss some of the challenges that you've found with shooting, whether it's showing up at the venue and maybe your credentials aren't there and you kind of have to freestyle it, which Ryan Fitzgerald's over here laughing, or challenges of even venues without photo pits? What are some of the things that you find to be challenging shooting shows? Is it the editing process? What is it?
No, I love editing.
Great.
That's my favorite part. Get up in the morning, get some coffee, sit and put on some tunes and edit, and it's just really, I love it. No, I think I'm not by nature a really pushy person, so to go down into the front at the rail, if I'm not already there at the rail, I have a really hard time pushing my way down there. So I have to get to shows I have to get to shows super early and plant myself. And I have to be really strategic of where I want to be so I don't have microphones in front of me or music stands. But, and then, God forbid if you have to leave the front to go to the bathroom or something and you come back and your spot's gone. But
People get pretty aggressive trying to
But
hold their place.
people are really hardcore in Colorado with their spots. But so basically I like shooting when there's a pit much better. I mean, that obviously.
Yeah.
So.
What have you found it easy to get credentials and like that part of the process? Has that been something that you're finding? Because from what I can tell, almost every credential request you're outputting comes back positively.
Oh, good.
That seems to me, and then
except for Phil Les shows, but I don't know why. I think. Oh, really? Yeah. I feel like anything to do with Grateful Dead shows is a little tougher, but they've got.
Dead and Company's easier, but Phil Lesh.
I've never gotten one for that.
And then he played summer camp, and then I got an email address.
So, I want to talk. I want to talk about something that happened recently. I saw that you were not only approved for credentials for What the Night Brings, which is the Jeff Austin tribute show, but that you're going to just basically have open access to the pit and.
Supposedly, that's what my email said, and it said I can shoot from the pit for the whole entire night, which is great because I guess they're literally going to have one or two songs from each band or person, whatever, and they couldn't do a 3 songs, 20 minutes.
Right, the pit
and then
time
you're
kind of becomes
booted out thing. No.
Right.
I think
Rockstar.
I think a lot of people thought that the format for Brings was going to be a little bit different. So.
One thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to bring Ryan Fitzgerald back into this just real quick. As we watch contributors to Music Marauders, we watch the work grow, and we watch them get more followers and gain traction, and the work improve, and this and that. A lot of the photographers and contributors are now being hired to shoot for bands or venues. A lot of our contributors are shooting solely for venues as well. It's really great to watch because you take something that starts as like a passion project and to see people start earning from that is great. But one of the things that... yes. I think we can all agree.
Definitely.
One of the things that I think is an interesting dynamic is trying to sort the value of your work, trying to communicate the value of your work, and that delicate dance where the person hiring you doesn't want to give you a budget as to overpay you, and they're waiting for you to tell them, how much you charge. I've just noticed this really delicate dance, and I don't know if you guys can speak to that at all, but...
Yes, I'm always sending him messages all the time
I never mind.
on Messenger saying, Ryan, what should I charge for this? Ryan, what do I do? He's
come
my
up with-
advisor.
How do you come up with those? How do you come up with your price points? And do you look at the show and what size venue it's at? How does that work?
Well, you answer that because I'm not the one that's getting paid to shoot shows yet. So.
I have like a flat kind of base rate that I'll throw out there, but with the caveat that if I'm going to be working for you for like at a festival, if it's going to be a 12-hour day, obviously I'm not going to charge my hourly rate. But it depends on the show. So you have a baseline to start with. If it's a younger band, they might not have the budget. Maybe they're opening for somebody else, and they're not really making too much money. And if you've got the time, then you have a little wiggle room. You can lower that rate a bit. And obviously, if it's a bigger act, bigger venue, then you're going to raise it. And obviously, there's a time commitment too. I do photo and video and edit, and
it's not just the time that's spent at the show. It's all the processing of everything that's really most time consuming.
I find I wouldn't say the editing is my favorite part, but it is definitely
so time consuming.
It's it's like a nice cathartic kind of period where you can kind of you unwind from the show. You can reflect on what you saw visually, because obviously you're trying to tell a visual story if you're shooting an entire set. One of the things I found though, I never had any problem talking to you about how to structure rates or anything like that.
No.
And I find that conversation isn't or it's rare. You have people like colleagues, essentially that they keep it so close to the vest. Nobody wants to say how much they're making. Nobody wants to say how much they're charging. I think it's probably because they're worried about being undercut. When it comes to pricing.
But if everybody's worried about being undercut, can you have a productive conversation, or how do you approach that conversation?
No.
So I'm super open about it, because I think the more collaborative we are as a team and as people who are doing the same thing, the more fairly we're ultimately going to be compensated. If we have a standard. Whatever that standard may be, in this room it's a little lower.
Affordable.
But it's a conversation that's uncomfortable. People don't like talking about money, but you have to.
Yeah.
And if especially if you want to do this and make a living off it, I'm getting paid to work, but it's certainly not. It's not sending me to Hawaii or anything like that.
There's a funny story about somebody at this table telling somebody else at this table to make sure they're compensated for their work. How did that play out?
So I got asked to go shoot the opening set for the I believe it was Fort Funk in Fort Collins. It was Tenerdle and Youth Orchestra were playing, and that's where I met Nick in person for the first time. And he asked me what I was getting paid, and my answer was nothing. And he gave me a very stern talking to.
Mimna will do the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're lucky Nick got to you first.
Yeah, Mimna got to me after I had already been scolded by Nick here. But
he still got a hold of you.
It was one of those things that I didn't even consider. It's just something I liked doing, and
don't you have to shoot for free a little bit to develop your portfolio or have something to present to people as a product?
Yeah, there's no way that you can start charging right out of the gate. That's absurd.
Right.
You have to have a portfolio.
Right.
You have to have enough under your belt to be able to show people look, I'm worth it. See all the things that I can do. But
everybody at this table is worth what their rate is, although I don't know a couple of the rates. I'm just speculating that they're worth it. But everybody at this table does such good work and such high quality work that if there are bands out there looking to hire individuals to shoot their shows, album covers, things like that, we've got a great pool of people here that will take care of that for you. At an affordable
I like
rate.
that.
Yeah, it was
and
anybody would be lucky to have you guys shoot their stuff.
Thanks, man.
Because I find that both of you guys do a great job with. I think both of you guys do a great job. If you look at some of the galleries on Music Marauders, everybody has different styles. Some are more limited. You'll get 25 photos that are great and have a certain mood. Some galleries are 150 photos, and I always find that I get a high volume of really great quality photos from both of you. And I think that helps to paint the broad picture of what's going on at these experiences. I often look at both of your photos and find myself feeling like I was at the show.
Oh, that's
and it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool because you're so close up and just the angles. It's really, really high quality work.
It's funny whenever I'm working a show that Nancy's at, if she has solidified her spot on the rail, I generally don't bother because I know she's got it covered.
Oh, there you go. That's because I'm guarding that spot with my life.
Yeah.
Get your arms out wide.
Oh yeah.
So
those people that move in on you, they yeah.
I'll just tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be here for the first 3 songs, and then this is your spot. And so then they're always pretty chill about it.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll be like, hey, and I'll go in
And then you stay for 5 or 6 songs.
Yeah,
and really hold it down, invite your friends up.
Like,
Got this great spot on the rail. So much room.
But I try to be just clear with people what set expectations and then have less of an issue that way.
I try to be very mobile, as opposed to kind of sticking in one spot. Just be mobile and just I let everybody know I'm only going to be here for
and you guys,
a minute.
You capture so much around the venue. It's not like you plant in one spot and that's where your gallery's from. I mean, you're capturing the outside of the venue, the merch table, the bar, people, serving and slanging drinks, and it's just a cool thing to see. Check out both their work. You guys both want to mention your outlets and where people can follow you and see your work?
Nancy Isaac Photography on Facebook and Nancy Isaac 941 on Instagram.
Awesome.
And Isaac Photography for the non-music side of things.
Love it.
So you can see lots of pictures of French bulldogs and stuff.
I love that.
That's my favorite dog.
I went to follow it and
He's
I was
my favorite dog.
So.
Ask Kyle how much I love that dog.
Sweetheart of a dog.
I'm going to steal him from my daughter. It's not my dog.
Ryan, where can people see your work?
Jarred Media. It's not Jared. I will respond to it. Jarredmedia.com. It's the same across Facebook and Instagram. I'm terrible at updating my website, so Instagram, and actually I've gotten really bad about updating my Facebook page too, and just I cross post whatever Justin here puts on Music Marauders. But yeah, Instagram's probably the best spot.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy, for participating in this, and it is such a pleasure to have you here. And
super talent, Nancy. You're a huge talent. Thank you so much.
Rock
really
star.
Appreciate it.
Ryan's going to talk a little bit about Backline, which I think is a really important topic to discuss.
Backline it's a hub for mental health and wellness resources. Talking about Jeff, talking about Neil. I mean, those are 2 of 10 that I know of this year. Where they've lost that battle with depression.
I feel like it's been a rough year.
It's been a really bad year, and this has shined a very unfortunate light on an issue that is not just. It's not local. It's obviously a problem everywhere. Specifically within this industry, it's difficult to keep a routine, to keep yourself regimented, and to keep yourself healthy.
And working regular jobs, you have the support of sometimes coworkers and kind of there's like structure to a lot of office environments and mental health resources, and I think that going town to town for a lot of musicians, you don't really get that network. At least it's not as apparent on the front end.
And listening to the music of these people, you can feel how deeply personal it is to them. So being able to have access to a resource hub like this is very, very important. This is Ryan Fitzgerald with Music Marauders talking to Tori Pittarelli and Hillary Gleason about Backline. Thank you for doing this, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. I'm Hillary. I am a co-founder of Backline as well as CEO of Level, which is a consulting firm that works to connect the music industry with nonprofit initiatives.
And I'm Tori, also one of the co-founders of Backline. I work with Hillary for Level, and when I'm not doing that, I have a jewelry business called the Mischief Collective.
So Backline is the music industry's mental health and wellness resource hub. We launched on October 7th of this year in response to some of the tragedies that have been plaguing our community. The origin behind it was really just having a lot of conversations within our community and recognizing that none of us knew what to do to support each other better. So we sent out a conference call invitation to a bunch of people across the industry, musicians, agents, managers. And so we all got on one call to discuss what we were going to do, what great organizations exist, and how we could get that information to the people who really need it. So what we discovered was that there were some gaps in making the information about these resources available to people, and thus was born Backline. We aim to put all of these resources in one place, provide a case management service where people can actually go on and say, hey, I need some help. They are then referred to one of our licensed psychologists who will reach out to you and assess what you need and how we can help get that to you. So that could be therapy, nutrition support, yoga, financial counseling, sort of whatever you need to thrive both on and off the road. So it's been 3 weeks now since we launched, and it's been a pretty crazy ride, but definitely feel like we are meeting a need there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very cool what you guys have put together here. What is it about this industry that kind of lends itself to people just not knowing that they can reach out, not having these outlets for help? Like, it just seems like you notice it more and more with people in the music industry, more so than a lot of other professions where, you know, you have your regular W-2, you've got employer provided health insurance, things like that. I mean, but it's what about this? Is it the lifestyle? Like, why do you think this was such a need?
Yeah, so you touched on it. I think there's a massive list of factors that contribute to these difficulties, whether it's, like you said, not having benefits from a W-2 job, or, you know, not having the routine of being at home and establishing someone that you talk to on a regular basis. Oftentimes people don't have the privacy that they need to do self-care or take time for themselves, sharing rooms with people, being on the road all the time. And then I think one of the big things is that you're expected to put on your happy face and perform for people and be in the public eye. And no matter what you're going through, you're supposed to be able to entertain. So
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a public perception that it's one big party, and I think we can all attest to the fact that it very much is not.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's this real velvet curtain that exists in the entertainment industry, and we don't want to lift that, you know, too much, but I think that there should be at least community on one side of the curtain, where if you're in the music industry, you know how hard it is. And something that I see as a real issue is it can be hard to share with the people around you, your managers, the people in your band, sometimes even your partner, because there's a mentality where the show needs to go on. And so when you open up to people, it can cause worry or concern. And so in order to sort of prevent yourself from being the subject of that concern, you maybe just isolate and pretend that everything is okay so that you can continue to, you know, financially support yourself and your family. And so part of what we're really trying to do is start this discourse and say, you know, we all struggle with different things at different times, and how can you more effectively communicate with the people around you, you know, in addition to mental health professionals. But I think a lot of this is just at home and creating a support system around yourself, and enabling people to be transparent about what's really going on. And something that I've been trying to do recently is when someone asks how I am, it doesn't always have to be great. It can sometimes be stressed out or tired or whatever it is, and just beginning to have those conversations more frequently and create a sort of different narrative.
Something I've noticed over the last couple of years specifically have been just a more of a willingness to communicate about what you're, you know, how you're feeling. You know, it, like you said, it doesn't always have to be great. It's usually not. And I think the more honest we are with each other about that, ultimately we can be more honest with ourselves. So when you said this launched about 3 weeks ago, definitely made a splash. Obviously the reception has been overwhelmingly positive. Can you talk a little bit about some of the people you've worked with and partnered with, and how this landed so well?
Yeah, I think part of the reason that it landed so well is because we really took this on as a collective effort. And so before we even knew that we were going to create Backline, we were in conversations with people, something we were calling the Music Industry Mental Health Task Force. And so really giving agents and musicians and tour managers an opportunity to share their stories, share where the gaps exist, and then create something around that. So it really was a collective effort. And then when we launched, those people felt invested in this product or platform that we've created. And I think that was the most important part, is that we weren't trying to launch an organization by ourselves, but launch something that actually meets the need that people are experiencing. And we have an amazing group of people behind this. In addition to Tori and myself, our clinical director, Zach Borer, is in LA. He actually was a musician for 10 years, touring experienced burnout from that and went back to school to become a therapist. He's now working in LA, specifically in the music community. And so he's been doing this in his private practice for a long time and has a large network there, as well as sort of an understanding of what this needs to look like. We then have Kendall Corso, who is out of Brooklyn, New York, Stephen Grabowski from Dayglow, and Joshua Knight from Paradigm, as well as a bunch of other amazing people who have been a part of this. Annabelle Lukens from Cloud9, Ari Fink from Jam On, and Don Strasberg from AEG Rocky Mountain. Everyone has had a hand to play. And how can we activate this? How can we get this information out to artists? How can we really make this splash and let people know that it's available? So one of our main ways of doing that is actually getting up these one-pagers with information about Backline into venue, green rooms, and backstage areas across the country, and trying to create some name recognition so that when people are struggling, they don't have to run a Google search to find these resources, but they know that Backline is a place to start. And so we've had really amazing partners across the venue space that have hung up these one-pagers. We'll be in something like 150 green rooms in the next month. And so really trying to meet people where they are, and that has all been informed by the people on this task force who have said, what about this? And what about this? And how can we, activate this community? And it was born out of the jam scene. And I think that makes a lot of sense. We do act as a community often, and sometimes more so than the other genres. And so, of course, it was born from that, but it is a lot bigger than that, and really want to make sure that it's accessible and inclusive to music industry professionals and their families across all genres.
Yeah, and I think that the way that it was received during launch week just really speaks to how big of a need there was. And
Absolutely.
That's kind of the biggest thing that I walked away with is, of course, we were so honored to have all the support that we had, and but it just made me really aware that we're doing work that needs to be done, and that there's a long road ahead of us. And so it feels really good going into it, knowing that we have a bunch of support to make it happen. And that's, we have a small team, but we have really a big team.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like as small as the team might be, it's the reach is incredibly large. I mean, I've seen the one-pagers up in every green room I've worked for the last few weeks. So,
and we, since we've launched, have had 75 people reach out looking for help, and that tells us that the messaging is landing, and that people are seeing this as a place to get started. And so our case managers are responding to each of those inquiries and really acting as navigation for this industry. So the mental health care space, the insurance space, it can be pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
But our thought is that if you have someone helping to guide you to these services, and you can maybe take care of one thing, so financial assistance or whatever you need, then everything else can feel a little bit more manageable. And so really providing that support is our biggest thing. And so continuing to spread the word on social media and all of that is very important, but really the work that we're doing through the case management program is speaking to the need even more, that people are seeing this and saying, hey, I could use some help. And I think giving people a place to get privacy around it too, right? So if you contact a case manager, you don't necessarily have to let anybody know that you've done that. And you can privately access this from the third row of the van. And I think that's a huge part of it too, is you don't necessarily have to tell anyone if you're not there yet. And the hope is that through accessing these services, you get to a place where you can be more open about what's going on. But if you need to privately access services, that's available to you now. And I think that's really powerful.
So today is November 4th. Obviously, tonight is the Jeff Austin tribute, What the Night Brings at First Bank. You had mentioned to me that there are going to be grief counselors on site. This will be coming out, obviously, after the show, but I thought that was very, very cool. It's an excellent thing to do. I mean, this is a deeply personal night for a lot of people. It's going to be very, very emotional, especially in such a large room. It's going to be a very intense energy. So I thought that was a very cool thing to have done.
Yeah, so this will be the first time that we're providing support services on site. As our services are primarily backstage facing, that's where we'll be activating, but recognizing you have something like 15 bands coming in with their crews, as well as the venue crews who are all based in Colorado. And I would think that almost everyone there has been personally touched by Jeff's life and legacy, and it is a night to celebrate his music and huge contributions to our scene. But also recognizing that he left a huge hole in so many of our hearts. And so we were asked to come in and provide grief counselors for everyone who has a hand in making the music happen tonight. And we have found a really amazing network of people to support with that. And I think it's important to recognize the duality of loss. You know, we can celebrate everything that they brought into our lives and also recognize that we are left with a lot of grief there. And so to be able to provide support in person for a memorial event, I think is important.
Now, Tori, you emailed me about the leftover salmon thing. I'd love to hear you elaborate on that a little bit.
Leftovers team reached out to me fairly recently, I want to say a week or two ago, letting us know that they are recording and mastering right now 10 new songs, and they put one ahead of the rest that Greg wrote about Jeff Austin, and they wanted it to be released the day of this show, and so today, and they wanted to give us the proceeds, so they kind of let us take it and run with it, and so we put it on our website, and which is backline.care if you want to check it out. You can pay what you wish to download the song, read what Greg wrote about growing up with Jeff Austin in Chicago and how he touched his life and the legacy that he left, and the inspiration for writing the song, and grab some tissues when you're reading it. It's beautiful, but we were really honored to have them think of us to do this. It's an honor for them to give us that song.
Are there any kind of upcoming events, maybe, you know, what's happening in the short term and the long term, anything you'd like the people to know about?
Well, like Hillary said, Backline is it's not forward facing. We don't want to be confusing by being present at too many events, because then that would give the idea that we're providing this service for everyone. And while we wish that we could, we're addressing a very specific demographic, and hopefully inspire, you know, some other similar efforts that are fan facing. But for now, we're not necessarily doing any events. We're just trying to focus on getting our one-pagers up in the venues and doing the work backstage and developing relationships with other organizations that are out there doing things like providing therapy and other wellness resources to everyone. So just a lot of research right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a lot more that we're going to be releasing in 2020. Don't want to give anything away until it's solidified. But you will start to see Backline sort of across the space. We have a lot of people reaching out and saying, would you be our charity partner for the festival that we're throwing, or for our merchandise line or whatever? And basically all of those answers are yes. We could use all of the support that is coming our way, make sure that we are funded and able to really provide these services for a long time to come. So we will be at certain events moving forward, but not necessarily providing support services on site. So much as maybe just telling people that this exists and being there to sort of foster those conversations.
Yeah, that sort of word of mouth marketing goes a long, long way in this industry specifically.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Keep having the conversations. If you're not okay, talk to someone about it and know that that's okay.
And if you want to learn more about Backline, you can go to www.backline.care. Follow us on Facebook at Backline or on Instagram at backline.care.
All right. Thank you, Tori and Hillary, for talking with us today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Look up Backline. You can find them. You can find them everywhere.
Backline.care.
Backline.care.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And thank you to the team over there at Backline for putting this together. It's really nice to.
Yeah, Tori was super responsive when I asked about mentioning this, and so yeah, very, very appreciative.
Let's jump into news.
Prominent guitarist of American rock band Little Feat, Paul Barrere, died at the age of 71 this past week after a long bout of liver cancer. Brad and I were talking that I really never heard of Little Feat until Fish covered Waiting for Columbus in 2010 in Atlantic City, and I think actually Little Feat's kind of comeback to the jam band fame started with Fish covering them. Such a great album, kind of a hidden gem of Fish Halloween set.
Is that true? Does anybody else feel that way, that it was kind of like Fish bringing them back to light? Probably for a lot of fans, obviously for you.
I think it's a phenomenon called the Fish bump. Fish plays like apples in stereo.
That means multiple different things.
Don't ask Frank Zappa's family how they feel about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, fair enough. Actually, that's weird. Little Feat has a connection to Frank Zappa, too. The original founder was Lowell George, and he was in the Mothers of Invention for a period of time.
Little knowledge.
Just to bring some relevance.
Yeah, that's
well, I will say this about Little Feat. They were just coming off of the 50th anniversary tour. They did play the Paramount in Denver. They did a full run, and I'm a little sad that I didn't catch them before Paul's passing.
Same, and Paul, and Fred, the other, they play with every band out there. They played with Cheese, they played with Del McCurry, a bunch. I mean, they play with everybody out there. So it's a huge loss to the music scene.
And Bill Payne was in Leftover Salmon there for a little while.
I was going to mention that.
That was excellent as well.
For me personally, I think that's when I got into Little Feat, was when Billy Payne started playing with Leftover Salmon, and I was like, whoa.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he's incredible.
That was your gateway to Little Feat?
That was my Little Feat gateway.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's all one of those things. I mean, I think there's so much music out there, and nowadays you're just getting shot with a fire hose. People are constantly putting out new things, and it's very difficult to get noticed sometimes. But that being said, it pays to go back to some of the old stuff.
Anyone who's unfamiliar,
Little Feat.
Anyone who's unfamiliar with Little Feat, it is well worth looking into. Well worth it.
Yep.
There's a recent press release that came out announcing the split of all ownership at Arise Music Festival, which we found kind of surprising as they completely sold out the event this past year. Nick was telling us it looked like you couldn't find another car space for miles.
I tell you what, they use all of the extemporaneous parking lots around Arise, so it's not just that main giant field. And I can tell you, it's been a long time since I've been to Arise. I went to the very first festival, and I remember thinking at that time that this place, this space for this festival is too big. This festival is too big for its britches. I believe I said maybe even in the article. I was wrong about that. They totally grew into the space. There was 10,000 people there this weekend, and there were people that were there specifically for the yoga aspect. There were people there for the sort of holistic healing, the way to, and all that stuff. So I think we can we'll talk about this in future episodes about the change in festivals and how that sort of thing is just sort of it's evolving right now. So,
agreed. Oysterhead is back. The long-awaited reunion of the jam band supergroup is finally here, and wouldn't you fucking know it, Don Strasberg pulled off another miracle and is having the reunion start here at the First Bank Center, February 14th and 15th. So thank you, Don and AEG. We are super excited. Brad, you saw them in 2006, right?
I did. I saw them in Camden, New Jersey at, I believe at the time it was called the Tweeter Center, and obviously three amazing musicians. That tour was a little bit unique in that, with improvisers, you normally expect the set list to change and stuff like that. This was definitely a tour where it was planned out. Everything was very, very methodical. I don't think there was much room for variation at all from show to show. So I found that aspect a little bit disappointing, but it's been so long since we've had a chance to see these three guys together on a stage that I'm just super pumped to see them.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't know, it's Trey from Fish, Les Claypool on bass, and then Stuart Copeland, the absolute monster of a drummer from the Police.
That's a power trio.
So it is truly a power trio.
They're out there, man. And I know
it's not reminiscent of really anything. I mean, some of the darker Primus stuff.
Some of the Claypool stuff. You definitely pick up the Claypool there, but Trey's doing some, and Trey's just doing some different stuff on that. That's kind of cool.
For sure.
That he is, plays the Matterhorn.
Plays the antler.
It's a tough instrument to master.
Antler theremin, is that what it is?
Holy smokes, watch out.
The American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, otherwise known as ASCAP, is currently suing a Rhino-based jazz club for not having a verified license to play live music. Basically, you need to be registered with ASCAP in order to play any sort of music inside a business establishment, restaurant, bar, things like that.
I've seen a lot of venues have action taken against them for declining to pay these fees. And, I see both sides of this. I don't want to get too deep into this discussion. But I think that there's a place for musicians deserving some level of compensation for their songs that they own the rights to, and especially in a live setting. It's also a thing for clubs where it might be hard to, maybe you're only doing 30 people a show. It might be a small room. I've seen a lot
Might be in Fort Collins.
Might be in Fort Collins, but there's, it's challenging for a lot of rooms to see the necessity of that, and I see it from both sides. So
I feel bad for the Meadowlark. So this is happening at the Meadowlark in Rhino. They're very small. It's very improv. They might have some people sitting at dinner one night who have brought their horns and will jump up and play on stage. For them to have to pay $750 or more a year, to each their own. It's an interesting thing.
That is interesting. I guess please do keep us updated on that, because I'm curious.
It's a sliding scale. That's the beginning.
Right, 750 is the slide, yeah. Snowdown is coming to the Rocky Mountains, formerly held in Turin, New York, and for the first time in 7 years, Mo, jam band that we all love, is bringing their event to 10 Mile Music Hall in Frisco, Colorado, from March 20th through the 22nd.
It's Todd Altschuler's place. Hey, Todd. 10 Mile, yeah.
They are also going to hold the skiing portion of the event at Copper Mountain. They're going to have Floodwood there and Coral Creek, as well as some unannounced guests.
So they're doing sets at the mountain and then like a late night at 10 Mile, or like a...
Well, Floodwood is doing one set on the base of the mountain. That's the inclusion of
It sounds like Mo is only playing at 10
Mo will only be at 10 Mile, and
that's
they'll probably have an opener each night, something like that. I believe it wasn't Jaunty on that list as well.
I think Jaunty is on that list.
And so they'll probably have an opener each night, then Mo will do 2 sets.
When they've done these in the past, are they at indoor venues like this? Is it like okay, they're not... Well, you and I met at a Mo show up on the mountain.
That's true.
We had to take multiple gondolas to get to it.
Several gondolas. I fell down once.
I was almost over the weight limit.
It was funny. What I remember?
Too fat to skydive.
Too fat to gondola.
About that? We're referring to Mo and Breckenridge in 2011. Go to Music Marauders, search Mo and Breckenridge, and I think you can see some of our stuff.
When I left Denver, it was like 70 degrees, so I'm like riding up to the mountains in shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, and we get up there and it's dumping snow.
You're not the only one.
I'm new here.
God. What I remember is I had my camera up there and I'm trying to get some shots, and I'm just getting pummeled with snowballs.
People start throwing snowballs like glow sticks.
Somebody realized we're standing on snow, and they just start throwing snowballs.
It was like a glow stick war.
And it was crazy, and then the band was getting into it too. So
let's hope they don't do that this year. We'll see.
But Floodwood will be doing a set at the base of Copper Mountain, and then all the other music will be going on at 10 Mile. And I'm super excited because I have not been to that venue yet, and I've heard nothing but good things.
Awesome. Brothers Chris and Rich Robinson have teased a reunion of the much-loved American rock band The Black Crowes. I'm not really sure what the lineup's going to look like or where they'll tour, but the billboard itself has caused a lot of anxiety for some longtime fans. You kind of assume this might have something to do with the passing of Neil Cassell and the assumed end of the Chris Robinson Brotherhood.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see.
Sure.
I'm curious about what you're saying about the lineup here. Did the Black Crowes have like multiple lineups or something?
Yes, and Steve Gorman, the drummer, has said he's not going to be a part of it. Jackie Green was part of it. Black Crowes on their last reunion.
I remember that.
So it's like they're all over the place. Is Adam McDougall going to come back and play keys?
Luther Dickinson toured with them as
exactly.
well.
So that's why we say they could have Sting on the fucking bass. Like who knows?
I was backstage.
You heard it here, folks, guys. Sting on the bass.
No. I was backstage at a Black Crowes show at the Ogden one time with Steve Mullitz and Kate Hudson's dog, I think, was in a crate or just like in the corner. And he was like Chris was like watching the dog or something on tour. I don't know what was going on. Wild scene though, and I think the crowd was so into it, and people who are Black Crowes fans are really into that band.
I mean, they literally put up a billboard with the weirdest logo in New Jersey.
The crows.
And it started
It's like a cartoon.
huge commotion.
Yeah, take a look at that logo. I know the Jam Base posted it.
Yeah, it's from like the old Disney movies. Gypsy Sally's, a beloved music venue in Georgetown, which is a neighborhood in Washington D.C., is closing. They opened up in 2013. Unfortunately, the owner of the building that they are housed in has sold the land, is converting that into a condo complex. It's a very sad loss for the East Coast jam band scene, as numerous artists that we are connected to have kind of grown up there, most prominently and notoriously John Kalasek.
Yeah, I think that's such a bummer that it got sold out from underneath him. I think it kind of points to when you're investing in a property or investing in a business, the necessity of ownership of the building so that the rug doesn't get pulled out from underneath you.
I think Tip Tina's is a prime example of that. You know, if you're familiar with what's going on with Tip Tina's,
Yeah, I saw that.
Galactic bought the venue.
Right,
and
which is really cool.
I guess there's no other way to save it than to own it. And they've worked very hard to be able to get to that point. So.
And we've seen, tons of venue owners. One in particular comes to mind, Jay Bianchi here in Denver, who's it's almost become like a nomadic situation where he's jumping from building to building every few years. And actually, I give Jay a lot of credit for being able to rebuild time and time again.
His resilience is
It's like Don Quixote.
What do you? I've recently went to. I've been to Ripple a couple times just when there's not a show going on.
If you like psychedelics and you like psychedelic shit,
have you seen the back room over there?
Yeah, I have. I promoted a couple nights of Garage Mahal there.
So I thoroughly enjoy this. There's like some sort of like back hallways and things at Bianchi's. That's.
The first time I went there, I'm walking down a hallway with Jay, and it's all blacklight, and it's the yellow brick road.
Yeah.
And it's like the middle of the fucking day, and it's dark, and we're going down this hallway, and I'm like, what have I done in my life to lead me to this point? And we're walking towards a dead end in the hallway. There's nowhere to go, so I'm thinking to myself, like, what's the next move here? And, I trust Jay. But he pulls this tapestry back, and there's a door. It's like Alice in Wonderland shit. And we go through this door, and there's this big theater with, like, seats, and it blew my mind. And then he also, I guess, so he took that over, and he took over the space in between Ripple and that space upstairs, and he has, like, an art gallery and offices now, I think, too.
Awesome. Yeah,
cool
it's
space.
An intimate little theater kind of setting. With
Psychedelic Ripple here in Denver is what it's called.
Phish is going to be playing on December 3rd at the Met in Philly, only available to Sirius Premium subscribers, with certain aspects of the account set up. So this venue is only 3,500 people, which is going to be crazy for a Phish show. Smallest they've played in many, many years. 20. And so obviously they're playing Gamehenge. So everyone's going to melt down on the internet, and that's going to be my favorite part about Phish playing the Met in Philly.
That's a bold prediction.
We all just like look at you.
Time will tell.
Rage Against the Machine has announced that they are reuniting. They last played in the 2012 election cycle. The political rabble-rousers and 90s powerhouse.
You're welcome.
Nice job.
You're welcome.
Brad. Is confirmed to reunite to headline Coachella, which we ask, is that not weird that Rage Against the Machine is playing the Machine?
Well, maybe they're raging it from the inside.
Well, you have to think the amount of money they receive to play that is.
Maybe they get the money and they play their set, but they just preach at the people against Coachella.
It's just another bomb track.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
How do we follow that up? So, the cassette discovered in Andy Warhol's museum finds Velvet Underground musician performing snippets from his mentor's 1975 book. Of course, this is about Lou Reed. Warhol actually managed the Velvet Underground for a couple of years.
Wow. Did not know that.
Kind of, he was a, what do they call that, Renaissance man. So the two had a falling out. Side one of the tape has live recordings that Reed put together from 75 tours with songs from his album Sally Can't Dance and Coney Island Baby. Side two, labeled Philosophy Songs in scrawled black ink, contains 12 songs and a fragment of a 13 that have never been released and are largely unknown. Probably never going to hear them, but in Kevin's estimation, there's no way it's going to be worse than Metallica's collaboration.
It's like the Wu-Tang thing. It's like, can we hear it?
Yeah,
can I buy it?
It's just, you never know what's going to happen with these long-lost cassette tapes, but
Long live Lou Reed.
Certainly probably not a polished product.
Bill Kreutzmann, the longtime Grateful Dead drummer, is seems to be reuniting Billy and the Kids, which is his side project with Disco Biscuits piano player Aaron Magner, Reed Mathis from Tea Leaf Green, and all sorts of random
Electric
other
Beethoven.
bands.
Everything, Electric Beethoven.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor. Know who Reed Mathis is.
Reed Mathis played my wedding.
It's true. He did.
Yeah.
I was there. It was great.
And J-Rad guitarist Tom Hamilton. We have no information on if they're really touring, what's going on, but I am guessing we will get a Colorado show if I have to put my money on it.
Reed's an Oklahoma boy, but he started with
Telegraphic.
Jacob Fred Jazz Odyssey, for those that don't know. Another amazing.
Love JFJO.
That's not his name, though.
And lastly, since this is a podcast, we'll talk a little bit about podcast news. Tom Marshall of Fish lyricist fame has a podcast company now called Osiris. They just mentioned Long May They Run, but a lot of other Fish content as far as podcasts go can be found on the Osiris podcast. They just announced they're going to be doing an in-depth 5-part series just going over the Millennium Celebration at Big Cypress. So that will be another monumental piece of listening for all of us Fish fans.
Chris Pandolfi from the Infamous Stringdusters also has a great new podcast on the Osiris Network, where on the first show he does an interview with Paul Hoffman, and the second show with Billy Strings.
It's called Inside the Musician's Brain.
Yeah, it's great. And Billy Strings talks about doing DMT, so it's hugely entertaining. There's a little conversation about that, so I think it's kind of cool.
I'd also like to mention another podcast on the Osiris Network, Female Centrics, which is an all-female led podcast. They've been doing some really interesting content. I stumbled upon them because they did an interview with ex-12 Tribes cult member Kate Wiseman, and I listened to the first part. I haven't listened to the second part yet, but my God, don't get on that bus, people. Just don't get on that bus.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank
Appreciate you. We're going to be outputting these hopefully once a month to start, and we'll see where it goes from there. So stay tuned for future episodes. That concludes our first episode of Music Marauders Live. Make sure to subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for updates.
Flip up all my limbs, poke out both my eyes, pull out my swollen tongue. Wealth in the skies, and the siren song sweetly sucks me down to the ocean blue. Find my way